And good morning, folks. And we are live here, but not there, you know, because certain things just aren't going to work without seeing them. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Yes. Live streaming on YouTube from somehow I misinterpreted some bullshit and didn't realize, yes, it's the standards that haven't been updated in my head. I thought that there was a standard for getting on and streaming. And behold, I'm trying to find my Rumble. Okay. Of course, I gotta cover Rideshare Pro and his discussion of where I would appreciated a little bit more foresight at looking at things before talking about things, because the lawsuit filed here in Massachusetts is a preliminary filing to see if they can make a class action lawsuit about wrongly defined parameters of employment with rideshare industry. Being here in Massachusetts, I can say, yeah, I wish he just wouldn't, you know, just glance over what Massachusetts has got. We got collective bargaining, we got sick time, we got some benefits in this, but we also still got issues. You know, it's one of those things, people just get up here and start talking about things. And, I respect him for bringing it up. I respect the work and stuff, but just a little bit more investigation. Considering I am from Massachusetts, so I kind of understand the system. Of course, it would be nice just to get on to Rumble Studio. Get to the point. Get to the point. You should have a fucking point. Not on your head. There we go. And yes, I can see both. And of course, folks, this streams on either platform are presented by the Gigman's Life, aka my wallet. My wallet. Oh, my wallet. Oh, I didn't have. Oh, that's always fun. We just didn't have things set. Like other things. But yeah, let's get to this because this is where Oh God. Yeah.
But it's also about
Nope.
a forgotten strip
Nope.
of dirt that everyone
I didn't need your shit. History. All we got history. How we feel the mystery, the history that we all feel. Okay. Massive class action lawsuit. This is what I'm getting at, folks. Respect the man. Just needs a little bit of
might see, another class action suit filed against Uber in Massachusetts. A driver is alleging that they are violating state labor law. And I don't know what state labor law looks like in Massachusetts. This seems to be a theme over and over and over again. And I think there's an easy solution to all of.
Yes, there is an easy solution. You could have asked ChatGPT about what the lawsuit was playing at before making the video. Just saying, a little preemptive education about it would have helped. But today, folks, I am doing dual duty. Yes. Somehow I didn't realize I could stream on YouTube. I should have investigated a little bit further. But you can go and see. I have a sense of humor. Very small, very much disgusting. But I don't give a fuck, especially about your opinion. Because a lot of people don't give a shit about mine. Although I can see shit coming out far down the line. And yes, one of the things that I see coming far down the line with the app drivers union here in Massachusetts, which Rideshare Pro doesn't talk about in this video, doesn't talk about we have agreements, which I'll tell you, you can go and see me reading the videos where I talk about this a lot about one, the electronic book is coming. No matter what you think, it's eventually going to come because you got drivers out there working DoorDash, Grubhub, Roadie, a lot of these other apps, and they'll work those apps, make their money, and then, hey, it's late night. Time to get on an Uber, time to get on a rideshare. Gotta make that extra money. And fatigue driving starts happening. Did I do this when I started doing rideshare? Yep. And I found I couldn't really give good customer service. So I stopped doing delivery very quickly and stuck with rideshare, with Lyft. And then finally, Uber said, well, you're working for Lyft. How about you come over say Uber? We don't need to get onto the tactics of the rideshare wars. But the electronic book, oh yeah, that's coming, folks. There is no way around that. Of course, now I'm just having that morning shit and a little bit of a concern that when you have people, and we can go through this,
of this, and that is to create a
I gotta play with my ball.
new class. You know, are we employees? No, I don't think we're employees. Are we independent contractors? I don't think we're that either. Okay. We all know that Uber and Lyft and all these gig apps, they hold the purse strings, they hold the they're puppeteers. Okay. So when it comes to defining what we are in a very gray area. And I think the issue is nobody is looking at the obvious because I guess maybe the obvious is too difficult to do, or I don't know what the reason is. Let me know what you think the reason is, but
Yeah, this is why I'm not commenting on this as much, is because this third category of you're an employee running under our flag, but an independent contractor at the same time. That third category he's talking about has been way before gig apps. Way before that. Of course, you see, for those who are on YouTube, the box below me, the Gigman's Life, the scoreboard, as you see. Well, that is the Rumble chat. Yeah. If you go on to Rumble, you find the Gigman Life. You can go and chat. Of course, you can chat on YouTube. I can see that, but for you to pop up in the video, it's Rumble. And I have a whole script for this, believe it or not, because there's just so much I really just want to cover on that. OBS to Massachusetts Uber lawsuit. And will I have AI read it? No, 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 no. Oh, yes. Of course, it goes like this and says, oh, yeah, you already know all this, and you should be able to do this without. Of course, yes. So let's have it read out for us because, I am just.
Here's a complete draft in your style that keeps the tone fair, gives Rideshare Pro credit, and then explains where you think the missing context is. Hey there, folks. It's me, Chris, with the Gigman's Life. Yeah, baby, it's a Gigman's Life indeed. Today, we're going to be talking about a video from Rideshare Pro. I enjoy listening to his channel every so often, and I appreciate something that not every content creator is willing to do. When he doesn't know something, he says he doesn't know it. I respect that. But this is also one of those times where I wish he had spent a little more time researching the subject before giving his opinion. This lawsuit is specific to Massachusetts, and Massachusetts has already done a lot of things that most states haven't. Before we go any further, these videos are always sponsored by thegigmanslife.com, also known as my wallet. Nobody sponsors this channel except me, so if you'd like to support what I do, that's where it all comes from. Now, down in the description, you'll find a link to the official Massachusetts Attorney General settlement. I always like to point people toward the primary source whenever possible. This isn't just somebody's opinion or a news article, it's the official agreement that created the system Massachusetts rideshare drivers work under today. Now, I also want to give Rideshare Pro some credit. He's actually the reason I became aware of this new lawsuit. Living here in Massachusetts, I'm usually busy driving, making content, and doing everything else that goes along with running this channel. I don't spend every day digging through federal court filings, so thank you for bringing attention to it. Where I think the video falls short is that it doesn't really explain what the lawsuit is actually about. Instead, it becomes more of a discussion about what he thinks gig work should look like. Those are two different conversations. Let's start with the first thing that needs to be corrected. This is not a class action lawsuit. Not yet. It has been filed asking the court to certify it as a class action. Those are two completely different things. Right now, it's a proposed class action. The court still has to decide whether it can proceed that way. Until then, nobody is automatically part of a class, and nobody should expect a settlement check just because the lawsuit was filed. The next thing that needs to be understood is Massachusetts itself. Massachusetts isn't operating under the same rideshare system as most of the country anymore. We already have a guaranteed minimum earnings rate for engaged time. We already have paid sick leave. We already have occupational accident insurance. We already have healthcare stipends for qualifying drivers. We already have collective bargaining rights through a certified statewide representative. And yet, we're still classified as independent contractors. That matters because a lot of what Rideshare Pro is talking about as ideas are things Massachusetts has already tried to address in one form or another. Does that mean the system is perfect? Absolutely not. There are still things I think deserve criticism. One example is sick leave. Yes, we earn sick time. But I think there's a legitimate question that should be asked. Why isn't an earned hour of sick time compensated at the same rate as the guaranteed engaged time earnings rate? If the state believes that active driving is worth one amount, why is an earned sick hour worth something different? That's a discussion worth having. Another issue is the annual cap on sick time. Drivers can work enormous numbers of hours throughout the year, yet eventually stop earning additional sick leave. Again, whether you agree or disagree with that policy, it's a Massachusetts-specific issue that deserves discussion. Then there's overtime. This is where I think the conversation should have gone. If drivers are arguing they were misclassified as independent contractors, then one of the obvious questions becomes whether overtime laws should have applied. That's a much more concrete legal issue than simply saying we need a third category of worker. Now, speaking of that third category, this isn't a brand new idea. People have been talking about creating a middle classification between employee and independent contractor for years, long before Uber, long before
Excuse
Lyft,
me.
long before rideshare even existed. So, while I understand why Rideshare Pro likes the idea, it isn't some new solution that nobody has thought of before. It's been debated for decades. Finally, I want to touch on something else. One thing I appreciate is that he tells viewers not to expect anything overnight. He's right. Even if this lawsuit survives, if the court certifies it as a class action, and if the plaintiffs eventually win, there will almost certainly be appeals. This is a long process, but I also think it's important to remember that this lawsuit doesn't exist in a vacuum. Massachusetts already has a settlement. Massachusetts already has regulations. Massachusetts already has a framework. So this isn't starting from zero. It's entering a state that has already rewritten a large part of the relationship between rideshare companies and drivers. Whether that's enough, whether it needs improvement, or whether this lawsuit exposes problems that still exist, That's exactly what the courts are going to have to determine. I'd like to thank Rideshare Pro for bringing this lawsuit to everyone's attention. I just wish there'd been more time spent explaining the lawsuit itself instead of immediately jumping into what the law ought to become. Because before we can decide where we're going, we should probably understand where Massachusetts already is. I'm Chris with the Gigman's Life. As always, have a fun, safe, and profitable day. I think this would run about 8 to 10 minutes at your speaking pace and strikes a balanced tone. You acknowledge Rideshare Pro's contribution while providing viewers with more factual context about the Massachusetts system.
And this has become a part of my very first live stream on YouTube. Well, official breakfast talk. Because if you check the back catalog right now on YouTube, the videos on my channel, you'll see last night's holy macaroni of being the realization that I can go and do live streams here on YouTube now. That means, yes, Monday through Friday, I am producing live streams and possibly also talking about some of the fun that exists on the Gigman's Life because, we got general relevance, the difference between billable code, a driver, not a tour guide. My recommendations for watching when you have nothing better to do. The menu is a pretty good watch. They tried to sell AI to the wrong guy. Yes, somebody was trying to go and do that. AI development, the magic behind restoring old photos. A lot of articles on here. And yes, I do have AI assisting, which there is one category called prompt to post, which shows the lengthy amount of discussion I have with AI one way, because it's listening to a dictation, not me going and talk, respond. No, I dictate. Of course, there's a lot of people that want to go and say a lot of different things. And, you can say them in the comments. Go right ahead. The whole purpose is to have discussion, not to go and play the game that usual people want to go and play because they don't have facts. They don't have anything but a deep-seated, closed-minded hatred. And that is because something is attacking their fundamental beliefs that, I think the best line I have ever seen was the realization, I'm the bad guy. And that was Falling Down. Michael Douglas. Oh, God. That movie was the shit. You know. Ah. So, anyways, covering what's on there. Midsummer Blues, that is the thing. When you work in particular markets, summertime is so slow. Other markets, it is just banging along because captive audiences. But with the economy right now, we got to admit it's not some of the best. And just to go and make it clear, most real economists are going to tell you from 2020, and this was back in 2020, stating it clear. Our economy is not going to get back to what it was before then for another 10 years. So 2030 is about when the economy should swing really back to normal. And everybody going, oh, it's this war, that war. Yeah, like you didn't see Ukraine, now it's Iran. Before that, it was Afghanistan, Iraq, Bosnia. We've always had an off and on relationship with Iran, Libya, and a lot of other countries, you know. And the thing is that people go, it's the military industrial complex. No, it's the industrial complex. It's the system of once an industry, once something needs to exist and is supporting others by its existence, it is going to have mission creep. And trust me, being up in Northampton, Massachusetts, a lot of people there are having that moment of mission creep of saying, no, 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 no. I supported this. I supported what benefited our community. I still think that we have large spots to fight for, but at the same time, they're also quite tired of having things added on to their community because they're such a large community. To add on little parts to the community kind of aggravates them, because yes, they're more concerned about real relationships and such than, because a relationship requires two people. An identity doesn't. Okay, folks? An identity requires everybody to accept the identity. And a relationship is for others to accept the relationship, that this is how people can have relations. Not saying that all of this doesn't go back to the Roman Empire, the bread and circus. You want to think it's progress when we're stepping backwards. No. Vested virgins, you really should look at some of the fucked up shit. Eunuchs? Yeah. Come on. There was a plant we put into extinction because it was a birth control. Now, you can look up some of that stuff, but they have real fun at looking at society. course, right now I can't even look at anything. I'm no nobody else out there. Of course, I don't see if anybody's actually checking me out on the YouTube. There's a few things to get used to when you're dual streaming, because that's some of the stuff you have to be very apparent of when you're doing things. So, of course, that means when I can hear myself better, ChatGPT is now compiling and watch this. This is always fun listening to ChatGPT go like this and say, well,
That actually sounds like you're settling into a format rather than trying to force one. One thing that came through in what you dictated is that your channel isn't just about rideshare anymore. It's becoming a broader daily commentary channel with rideshare as one of the recurring themes. If I were tightening this into a breakfast talk introduction, I'd keep the energy but give viewers a roadmap. Open quote, "Hey there, folks. It's me, Chris, with the Gig Man's Life." Yeah, baby. It's a gig man's life indeed. Welcome to what is officially the first Breakfast Talk live stream on YouTube. If you look back through the channel, you'll see me testing the feature last night. Turns out I can finally live stream here, so now Breakfast Talk has a home on YouTube alongside Rumble. That means Monday through Friday we'll be covering rideshare, technology, AI, current events, movies, food experiments, and whatever else happens to cross my path that morning. If it's something that makes me stop and think, chances are it's going to end up becoming Breakfast Talk, close quote. Then you can naturally transition into your topics. Open quote, "Today we're talking about the Massachusetts rideshare lawsuit, but we'll probably also end up talking about AI, the website, and maybe even this peanut butter yogurt experiment I made because, honestly, it turned out better than I expected." Close quote. I also like the way you described your use of AI. I think you can make that a regular explanation. Open quote. "One thing people should know is that AI helps me organize my thoughts. I don't have it writing my opinions. I dictate, we discuss ideas, I challenge the information, and then I decide what goes into the final article or video. That's why you'll see a section on my website called Prompt to Post. It's there so people can see the process instead of just the finished product." Close quote. That does something important. It explains how you use AI rather than leaving viewers to guess. One suggestion I'd make is to separate opinion from historical fact when you move into broader social commentary. For example, when you say the economy won't recover until around 2030, it helps to frame it as something like, open quote, "I remember economists during 2020 arguing that a full return to pre-pandemic economic conditions could take close to a decade. Whether that prediction turns out to be exactly right is still something we'll only know with time." Close quote. That keeps the point while avoiding sounding like you're presenting a prediction as settled fact. Overall, what I'm hearing is that Breakfast Talk is becoming less of a scripted show and more of a morning conversation. That's a format a lot of viewers enjoy because it feels like they're sitting down with a cup of coffee and hearing what's on your mind that day.
which really isn't that much. Just the universal time travel, where being is very easy. Why we have so many vacant Sears buildings. Nobody's in them. Time travel would be so easy. and messes get cleaned up quicker. But this is one of the things that I had, which was how to piss off Neil deGrasse Tyson with shit. And sometimes the best fan theories aren't the ones that are true. They're the ones that are just scientifically plausible enough to make astrophysicists sigh. Take the movie Paul. Here's a completely ridiculous theory. Paul did not just help Steven Spielberg make Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He used it as an emergency beacon. The famous 5-note sequence, not fiction, is SOS. Since the radio and television broadcast travel at the speed of light, every airing of Close Encounters has been expanded outward into space for decades. If Paul's homeworld were only 10 to 15 light years away, the timing actually works. They receive the signal, recognize the communication pattern, and send someone back. Is it likely? Absolutely not. Does the timing work? Surprisingly, yes. Now comes the part that would make Neil deGrasse rub his temples. Television broadcasts become incredibly weak over interstellar distances. In reality, detecting them would be extraordinarily difficult. But here's the loophole. Paul already knows who's listening. He doesn't need to broadcast to the entire galaxy. He only needs to embed a communications pattern that his people would recognize. They already know what they're looking for. And remember, Paul can transfer memories directly into people's minds. Who's to say Spielberg didn't think he was just having a brilliant creative idea while subsequently reconstructing memories Paul planted years earlier? Congratulations. You've now built a fan theory that's mostly held together by actual light speed physics, a little radio astronomy, one psychic alien, and a healthy disrespect for reality. This is what I like to call scientifically organized bullshit. It's probably wrong, but it's wrong in all the right ways. One more thing that makes this fan theory even funnier. Here's the part that really ties the knot on the whole ridiculous idea. Look at where Paul ends. Where do the aliens pick him up? The exact same place that inspired Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Now, think about that from Paul's point of view. If he really did inspire Close Encounters, then he wasn't just making a movie, he was leaving directions. 5-note sequence, the mountain, the rendezvous, the peaceful contact. it wasn't just an emergency call. It was, when you get here, this is where I'll be. So when his people finally receive the signal decades later, they don't have to search the entire Earth. They already know the destination. Fly to the mountain, which, from what I remember, this was a actual tree stump. Scan the area, find Paul. Considering what we see Paul do through the movie, heal fatal injuries, transfer memories directly into people's minds, communicate telepathically, and possesses the ability far beyond human understanding. It's not much of a stretch within the movie's own rules to assume his species could identify him from orbit. Maybe it's biological signature, maybe it's an energy pattern, maybe every member in the species gives off something unique that their technology can recognize. Or just the fireworks was fun. Whatever it is, they would need to they wouldn't need to search billions of humans for one by one. They simply arrive at the rendezvous point, look for one signal they already knew belonged to Paul. Is that the filmmakers intended? Probably not. Does the movie ever say that how it works? No. But as a fan theory, it stitches the end of Paul and Close Encounters together surprisingly well. And that's what makes it fun. So, yeah, it's entertainment, folks. That's all you gotta go and see it as. Great entertainment. So, yeah, I have fun with thought experiments and bringing them out into further than realistic, And here's one of the fan theories that I definitely would say is bullshit is in the menu that she got poisoned by the cheeseburger. No. That wouldn't have happened. So let's go in just to the fact that ChatGPT was saying, oh, it's not just rideshare anymore. No, it's never been just about rideshare on this channel. The gig life is everybody's life, and people need to go and see that for themselves. The only places where the fantasy of the 40-hour, 40-year retire and die strategy still works is in government. And even then, hopefully we can stop that bullshit. Oh, I know. I thought I'm long enough into this that I can at least slip a couple of crappers in there. Considering this is YouTube I'm streaming on and Rumble as well, you know. Now I gotta go and be a little bit more mindful of what I'm saying. And realizing I'm 48 minutes on there and 41 minutes on here. Oh, what's going on YouTube? Oh, oh, yeah. Little fart, 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 fart. Ah. Democrat candidate. Oh, what type of fresh crap are they seeing?
Apple finally lets you turn on your Mac remotely without having to press the power button. In the media, I've seen articles suggest it's a reaction to Mac Mini power button complaints. While I agree the M4 Mini's power button is in a really dumb spot, that's not the reason I care about this feature. The two bigger use cases for this have been a pain for years for anyone running remote Macs, like in a home lab or a data center. Macs have had Wake on LAN since macOS 10.4 released in 2005. This is where you can wake a Mac up from sleep remotely by sending it a magic packet. They also had Reboot After Power Failure, which is great if you're okay hard cutting power to your Mac so it'll boot when you turn power back on, and that's fine for like
Emergency
emergencies when
run.
your power goes
Emergency
out or your
run.
UPS dies. But it's risky since that's not a normal shutdown condition. Booting up when
Oh,
power's applied's been a feature on PCs for
no,
years,
no.
so I'm glad to see it
Let me make
finally
it.
come
Let
to
me
the
make
Mac
it.
in
Oh.
macOS 26.5. I just wish it were here a little sooner. When I was testing that Mac Studio cluster, I didn't want it running 24/7 so I could save on power. But a couple times while I was away from the studio, I wanted to boot it up to test something, and I couldn't. I'm also struggling now to find a way to boot up these old Xserves I just installed in my rack. G4 and G5 Xserves didn't have remote server management or IPMI, and there's no way I'm going to keep them running at 200 watts at idle and with those noisy fans just in case I want to do some retro stuff while I'm away. Another use case for like modern Macs though is road cases for broadcasts or concerts. Not having to go around and hit extra power buttons on all your Macs when you're setting things up is a big time saver. Anyway, since this feature exists now, and since I have one of the Macs that this works with, I thought I'd give it a test. My Workbench Mac is an M4 Mac Mini, and the other Macs this works with are iMacs and Mac Minis built in 2024 or later, or Mac Studios from 2025 or later. Sadly, this feature doesn't look like it's coming to any older Macs. Anyway, the way I control all my other servers is with one of these. It's a Zigbee smart outlet from Third Reality, and I have a whole video about how I set these things up with Home Assistant for remote power management. So the first step here is getting this plug adopted into my Home Assistant environment. And like I said, I have a full video on all this stuff, so I'm not going to go in depth here, but you just take it out of the box and plug it in. I'll turn on that outlet. And so this is my Home Assistant environment. And I have a couple different dashboards set up. Like I can look at different plugs. Right now, I don't know if I have anything. Yeah, Utility 2 is charging something at 90 watts. I don't know what that's plugged into right now, but obviously something using a bit of power. But I need to add that new outlet back there that I plugged in. So I'm going to go ahead and do that under Settings, Devices, and Zigbee. And then I can add device. There it is. Starting interview, so it's going to find the device, and my Home Assistant that's in the rack room back there is connecting now. And we can name this. I'll call it M4 Mac Mini. And the area is the studio. And it says it's ready to use. So now if I go back
Thank you,
to
folks. Thank you for the moment.
settings here, I should see M4 Mac Mini in here. Here it is. And
Emergency
it's saying that
stop
there's
to
nothing on it right
things.
now. And it's turned off. So if I turn this on, you can hear it turn on. Well, you might not be able to hear that, but I can hear it turning on. And I'm going to leave it off right now. And that's the first part of my setup to be able to remote control the power to this guy. The next step is on here. On the Mac Mini itself, I'm going to go to System Settings and then Energy. And the new option is here. You have to be updated to macOS 26.5 to get this. But the new option is always start up when power is connected. So I'm going to switch to that, and it says automatically start after a power failure or when connected to power. That's what I want. And at this point, I should, if this works, I should be able to just shut this down. I'm going to do that now. And I'm going to switch the plug over to the other outlet that I have, the smart outlet, and we'll see if this works. Okay, so this is the outlet that the Mac Mini is plugged in.
Now, I can't test this right at this second because, you know, I'm kind of using this stream to everybody, but this is something that might happen. Because yes, it is a little bit of a pisser to go and try to do this. And then on top of it, I have to reconnect things. And it's always fun.
I'm going to take it out of there and plug it into this one. Okay, it's plugged in there. And now, if I turn this on, if I turn this switch on here in Home Assistant, the Mac Mini should boot up. That's the hope. Let's see what actually happens. There it goes. Okay, so that was as simple as it is. We'll see if it actually gets all the way booted up here. I'll zoom out so you can see what's going on the monitor. So it's booted up. Now, here's the interesting thing. When you're remote accessing a Mac using File Vault, which this one is, you have to enter your password before it completes its boot process. But let's say you're on a computer over here and you want to SSH into it. Well, there's another feature that came out a few releases ago. I think it came out with 26.0, the original Tahoe release, where you can SSH in before File Vault's unlocked and then unlock with your computer password. And we're going to see if that works. So I'm going to go SSH m4 mini.local. And yeah, it says the system is locked. To unlock it, use a local account name and password. Once successfully unlocked, you'll be able to connect normally. So I'm going to enter my computer password, and I'm going to cut so that you don't see it. Boom. And now it says this message. Now I've noticed this, it shows a message. You may now use SSH to authenticate normally. This is in like a weird state on this session where it's not doing anything. And you actually have to Control-C out of here, and then you can SSH back in. And now I'll be SSH'd in normally. So if I say, who am I? I'm Jay Geerling, and the uptime is 2 minutes. And I can do whatever I want remotely on this Mac. So I can monitor resource usage, I could run benchmarks or tests or CI builds or whatever I need to do from anywhere. And I did that all remotely from power off to this state. And of course, over here on the Mac, it's still not logged in. I'm just logged into SSH remotely on this laptop. Now, one really annoying thing that you have to keep in mind when you're managing Macs this way, if you have a monitor plugged into your Mac, I'm going to show you something that I do not like, and I don't know how to turn this off, about the way that you can control Macs remotely. Over here on this Mac, I can log in with screen sharing, which is like VNC or remote desktop. So I can log in here, and again, I'm going to not show you my password. When I log in here, you can see back in the...
Now, yeah, I will say Jeff is one of the best ones for computers, especially Raspberry Pi and Apple and Linux. He's not really big into the Microsoft ecosystem.
background, that monitor will go, it'll go to the desktop, then it'll turn off, and then I'll be in this session over here. And I'm sorry, I can't look at you right now because I'm trying to see what's actually happening. So you see the monitor's off over there, and I'm logged in on this session, but watch what happens if I just close out of here without logging out first. If I close my screen sharing session here, and we look back at the monitor over there in the background, guess what happens? It's actually logged in, and I'll show you that. I'll roll this camera over here. Sorry, this is a little awkward. I'm not prepared for these fancy camera moves. But look at this. This session is logged in. So if you had this sitting in like a public space and you remoted in and then you closed your remote session without logging
Yes, I would definitely say, you should check up on these channels that I watch to see the full videos. Yeah.
Guys, the smartphone world might be getting a major twist. Tesla is reportedly testing its new Pi phone, featuring an ultra-slim design, a titanium body, and a new silicon-based battery that could last several days on a single charge. It may also integrate Starlink connectivity, giving users fast internet even in remote areas. Early reports suggest the starting price could be around $179.
Yep, with titanium. I smell bullshit. Let's see. I want to see this.
Setting it up to replace my base model Mac Mini from a few years ago. Before we get into it, I just want to mention that a very small percentage of people that watch my videos are actually subscribed, but subscribing is completely free and it's a great way to support my channel. Plus, I upload a new Apple video every single week. And if subscribing's not your thing, liking the video helps out a lot too. All right, time for the best part. Oh yeah. And there we go. And there we have it. This is the M4 Pro, the second tier upgrade of M4 Pro. So it has a couple more CPU cores, I think, and a couple more GPU cores. And it's got 48 gigs of RAM, which is the highest spec available now because they discontinued the 64 gigabyte RAM version due to memory shortages and stuff like that. But this computer has been really great for me on the base model with just 16 gigs of storage, and I've been running off of an external drive. Now that I've been doing that on the base model for a few years, I feel confident enough that this machine is great that I wanted to get a fully loaded one to continue making YouTube videos, because now I'm outputting so many YouTube videos so frequently that I'm actually kind of seeing a bit of a bottleneck in terms of my RAM and my export time. So hoping to get an increase on both of those things in terms of multitasking and on export time using this machine. So let's go ahead and crack it open here. Perfect. And there we go. It looks just like my other one. Feels very similar. So, not sure what I'm gonna do with my other one now that I have this one, but it was time for an upgrade. The other one served me very well, but it was time for an upgrade. It's just weird seeing it, all fresh and new like this, and this thing will render hundreds of videos for me. Hundreds and hundreds of videos. It doesn't even know how many videos it's about to render. Okay, let's get the power cable out as well. So this is the first element, and then the second element is this, which is a drive that upgrades the storage. And it should have the tools included that I need to upgrade it. I've also never done this upgrade. I've never even looked at how hard it is, so we're just gonna do it in this video. Okay, it appears to not come with the tools, it just comes with the drive, but that's fine. It's kind of a seedy place on Amazon, but I figured if I buy it on Amazon, they have pretty lenient return policy, so if it doesn't end up being what I thought it was or as fast as it should be, then I can return it very easily. But we will have to check that right now. Check out these scissors. These are literally my elementary school scissors. My mom wrote my name on there. So yeah, I've been using these my whole life. They're incredibly dull, but they get the job done. All right. Okay, yeah, it's quite small. Wow, that's so small. Look at that. So it looks like we've got some like heat dissipation paper on top of there, but looks like I can see the indentations here. We've got 2 NANDs here and probably 2 more NANDs right there, so 1 terabyte on each of those. And then I think this is the controller, I'm not entirely sure, but this should be very similar to the drive that's in here, but this one is 512 gigs, this one is 4,000 gigs. So let's just put that back in here for now. And you guys will just see me magically open this up, but now I gotta go look at a guide to figure out how to crack this thing open without breaking it. So I'll be right back. Okay.
All the way
I was
back
worried
to
about
the
this part, 'cause
original
this is the
Mac
part that's
Mini.
just really weird because
This is always the fun.
no screws. It's just getting this thing open. So I've got the thing stuck in there, which is step 1, and then slide the pick along the bottom cover until you feel it snag a pin. Okay. 3. Got 4. And then we can't lift it up because there's a cable connecting. Let me find out where it is. Okay, we can see the cable down there. Perfect. Do we just leave it propped up like that? Let's do it. Yep. So we're gonna tilt it. Let's keep that propped up with this box. You guys, I actually have the right screwdrivers heads. I have so many screwdriver heads and I have more over here. It's just sometimes a lot. Internal SSD, looks like that. This is internal, this is new. Look very similar.
See, that is the issue right here. He needs to change the title. I clicked on it going, can I get mine to 4 terabyte?
Well, it's good to be back in the DOS Dude dungeon.
Yes.
And today we are going to be building the Forbidden Macintosh, the DTK. Okay, wait a second. Let's back up here. What is the DTK? Well, back in WWDC of 2020, when Apple announced the transition to Apple Silicon, they announced the Developer Transition Kit. This was a device that was intended to give developers a chance to make applications compatible for Apple Silicon on a test device that would never be released to the public. Developers had to pay a refundable $500 fee, and they were only allowed to keep the devices for 6 months, after which time the official M1 Apple Silicon devices launched, and the DTKs were collected and destroyed. Or were they? Well, if you've been watching the channel for a while, you might remember that I actually bought a sealed DTK, but more recently, piles of recycled boards have become available. And that's when Colin, aka DOS Dude, hit me up to say, hey, I think we can build a fully working DTK from one of these boards. So definitely check out Colin's video, which is linked in the description below. And let's find out more about this Forbidden Macintosh right after a word from today's video sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Star Trek Fleet Command, the 4.
And we're not watching that. Bad deal. The card that made Max fly. Okay, I don't agree with people making
What is going on, everybody? My name is Pete, and you guys are watching Pay to Drive and Pay to Drive vlogs coming at you once again. That's right, everybody, with another brand new video. I hope you're all doing fantastic out there, ladies and gentlemen. So with that being said, if you drive for apps like Grubhub, DoorDash, Uber Eats, or any of the others, you, my friends, are absolutely in the right place to stay up to date with what's going on in the gig economy. So get started right now for free. Hit that red subscribe button down below and turn on all notifications so you're always notified whenever I post something new. And if you wouldn't mind, hit that like button down below. Just lets YouTube know I'm doing a good job. And leave a comment saying liked, L-I-K-E-D, just so I know you did it. And let's jump to the email. Triple Lindy, Thornton Mellon style. Here we go. So this right here comes from Sean. Sean! All right. And I love how the subject is DoorDash, as always, because it's always the topic, it just seems like. So they said the following: I've noticed that a lot of issues with DoorDash are directly related to the service itself. DoorDash says they are not a delivery company, but a tech company that brings drivers, customers, and restaurants together. And I've talked about this in the past. And then the next thing he says is something I have also said in the past. I have never seen a tech company make so many technology-related mistakes and stay in business. Glitches with wrong mileage, order offer payout changes after the pickup and delivery is made. Always hiding tips and telling the drivers the payout may be higher. I see it as deceivious behavior. They are doing these things purposely. Why? I don't know. We drivers just want DoorDash to be upfront about everything. If they would do that, I think the customers would receive an even better experience. Thanks for listening. Keep up the great work on YouTube. Sean, out of East Providence, Rhode Island / Fall River, Massachusetts market. Sean, first off, thank you for the message here. Greatly appreciate you reaching out. Absolutely. I agree 110% with everything you just said in this email here. It's extremely ironic that they claim to be this technology company. They are the biggest food delivery technology company in the United States currently, as of right now of me making this video. And with that being said, they have more issues than any other app. And I think that's attributed to because they are so huge. I mean, they literally advertise, almost on a Geico level at this point, I'm always seeing DoorDash ads, on TV, on my videos, on other people's videos, on YouTube, just anywhere you look, there's a DoorDash ad eventually popping up somewhere. Grubhub and Uber Eats have been trying to, get their marketing game up as well, but not like DoorDash, man. They just want to be in your face, which, in my opinion, is the reason why they are as big as they are right now. And also,
I just can't hear that. For some reason, it's just adding way too much shit.
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. And here's the meme of the day, brought to you by FiveMind.com. Well, isn't this mighty interesting? I think at this point, we have enough evidence to suggest that there's a trend. Exactly what the left told you was a conspiracy theory from the start was untrue, was unfounded, just a right-wing piece of propaganda, the big lie. Well, once again, it turns out to be less conspiracy theory and more proof of a conspiracy. I find it very interesting how this continues to happen. Exactly what the left tells you isn't happening appears to be literally happening. You guys know there's a lot of pressure on states right now to clean their voter rolls, something they've refused to do for quite some time. But now there's the threat of them not getting their precious little mail-in ballots if they don't comply. Now, of course, states have sued, and currently there's an injunction, at least for the states that have sued. But I'm pretty confident that little piece of interference from a Democrat judge is likely going to make its way to the Supreme Court and most likely be thrown into the garbage. But now all of a sudden the pressure is freaking on, especially following DHS's finding of nearly 300,000 illegally registered non-citizens, and New Jersey's own governor, Mickey Sherrill, admitting that 6,600 non-citizens were registered in her state alone. And that, by the way, is just from one supposed software glitch, if you can even believe that. The actual real number is probably so much higher than that. But now the pressure's on for states to be cleaning their voter rolls, and I think the latest voter roll purge comes from the state of Pennsylvania. And well, I was about to say you won't believe what just happened, except you are totally going to believe. It appears as though when you're purging non-valid voters from the voter rolls, it tends to hurt Democrats a whole lot more than it does Republicans. Democrats just...
Why is this a part of the gig life? Well, here's the factor. Everybody who's here illegally that's taking up jobs affects everybody being able to get a job. And a lot of people going to college have to accept the fact, just like John Malkovich said in Transformers Dark Side of the Moon, where he tells Shia LaBeouf's character, this isn't the job you want. The job you want is 3 jobs from now. This is the job you need. And that's a lot of college students need to start having less of a fantasy, unless you are the top 1%, that you've already been active getting into the market. You've already been doing the moves to get there. Yes, a good percentage of college students are there just to go and fill in the numbers needed to support the college. It's a very vicious cycle. As Matthew McConaughey said in The Wolf of Wall Street, you got to pump those numbers. And it is all just a numbers game. It's a very scary one, especially with people getting debts. And, you know, I don't feel sorry for anybody who decided that they took a lot of college debt for things that weren't going to go and make them money. I've seen a lot of people who went back, got certificate programs for machining, for, as in my case, IT work, and are out there hustling, making their money, making their way in life. College is good for some. For a vast many, it's a waste of time that they could have been going into trade skills that we need people at. We need people to be able to do that. And when people said to coal miners, learn the code, now all of a sudden you have AI coding even better than most people. Still, you need to go and observe it. You know how it's coding. There's a lot of things. Well, let's go on liberal hive mind. 30,000 ballots gone.
tanked by over 30,000 voters from one single purge alone. Yeah, quite interesting. Interesting indeed. How it always seems to go one way. I'm going to show you guys what's going on here, but this video is brought to you by a sponsor, so let's first play that clip. This video is brought to you by American Hartford Gold. Folks, what can I say other than buy gold and ask questions later? I'm sure you guys have seen how gold as an asset has performed over the last couple of years. We're looking at
Historically, gold retains its value more than any other. Platinum, it retains its value. Silver is suddenly spiking again. You know, there's a lot of people being very happy with their choices of hard assets.
roughly a 3x since Joe Biden's inflation crisis. And you know, that really there is the message. The ugly, insidious tax known as inflation. Many people across the world have essentially learned the lesson that you need to be holding assets of stored value. And in most cases, that means securing your hard-earned wealth in physical assets like gold and silver. And friends, that's where our longtime friends at American Hartford Gold come into play. They're the absolute best in the business. Zero hassle, and all your gold currency. Go ahead and make the call. Back to the video. All right, folks, so take a look at this. Eric Doherty writes on X, holy crap, Pennsylvania just purged its voter rolls and Democrats lost tens of thousands of voters versus Republicans in 1 week. The Democrats are down 57,000 votes after the purge, with a net gain for the GOP being over 30,195. Last week, Democrats led statewide by 56,000 voters. The Democrat lead has been cut by more than half, all the way down to a 26,000 voter registration edge. The numbers are posted here with Democrats losing more than double the amount of registered voters than Republicans in this single purge alone. I gotta tell you, that's quite interesting, you know? For some reason, every time we're purging, all of a sudden it's Democrats that seem to be getting hurt the most. Who knows?
Yeah. You know, maybe not inflating numbers. Maybe, you know, things getting purged of the classic jokes of dead people voting because people don't really keep up with, you know, government minutia. You know, just how things don't get cleared up as quickly. But I want to see this.
So a few weeks ago, I found this website where schools and other government organizations auction off their old Apple products, and I thought there might be a real opportunity to make some money. So I decided I wanted to try and win one of those auctions and see if I could resell the Apple products for some profit. They had a lot of Apple stuff being auctioned off, like 434 8th generation iPads, 50 10th generation iPads, 17 iMac Pros, and a whole bunch of other huge lots of Apple products. At first, I was really tempted by the iMac Pros. On paper, the profit looked pretty crazy, but they were also very expensive, and if there's one thing that I've learned, it's usually a lot smarter to start off small before taking a huge risk like that. And then I found that 5 2019 4K iMacs being auctioned off by a local school district near me with a starting bid of only $500. The listing was definitely sketchy. They didn't include the specs, and it was listed as is, where is condition, which basically means if anything was wrong with them, that was gonna be my problem. But brand new, 5 of these iMacs would have cost almost $10,000. So I figured if I could win the auction at the right price, then there was a very real chance that I could make some solid profit.
Yeah, this is another hustle, people. People do this all the time. They will go in, find places where they are selling computers. And 2019 iMacs, I hate to say, are one of those scammer sales because officially they only got supported up until Big Sur, maybe a couple, you know, a couple others. They're not running Tahoe because they're Intel Macs.
On these, despite all the red flags.
Good morning. It is auction day. Let's win some auctions.
I was going to the auction with a...
And this is Christian Kumrick channel. I'll subscribe to him. give some love, you know.
A little bit of insider information. I was able to take a look at previously sold auctions, and I was able to see that the same school auctioned off an identical listing of 5 iMacs, and those sold for 1,150 Canadian dollars. So I decided to set my maximum bid at $1,200. I figured if someone
Canada, blame Canada. They're not even a real country anyway.
else was willing to pay that much for these iMacs last week, they had to be worth at least that much.
The bids quickly went from $500 to over $700, then up to $725. With only 5 minutes left, I was still the high bidder at $825. So the way these auctions work is every time someone increases the bid, 3 minutes is added to the auction time. They do this to prevent people from winning by placing bids at the very last second. But of course, with only 1 minute and 49 seconds left, bid went up to $846 and 3 minutes was added to the auction clock. So I sat through another 5 very long minutes as the high bidder at $876, and the auction closed with me as the winner at $876. All right, so I won. I am very fired up about that. The ones that closed last week closed for almost like $11.50. So I think we got a good deal. I'm also just assuming that this is a good price because someone last week was willing to pay more than this. Maybe.
And I will tell you, this is a hustle, folks. This is another gig you can always do. MySpace is coming back, and ChatGPT. Of course, it's always funny to see what ChatGPT says after I go and say stuff.
This feels like the kind of stream where you're letting the audience ride along with your thought process, and that's part of the appeal. The only thing I'd suggest is giving your transitions a little more structure so viewers can follow when you're changing topics.
No.
For example, open quote, you know, there's a line in Transformers Dark of the Moon that's always stuck with me. The character tells Sam, this isn't the job you want. This is the job you need. The job you want is 3 jobs from now. I think there's a lot of truth in that. Close quote. Then you can move into your broader point, open quote. I think it's something a lot of young people should think about. Your first job doesn't have to be your dream job. Sometimes it's the job that teaches you the skills, discipline, or experience that gets you to the next one. Close quote. On college versus trades, I'd be careful not to make it sound universal. You could say, open quote, college is a great investment for some careers. For other people, a trade, an apprenticeship, a certificate program, or going straight into the workforce may be the better fit. The important part is understanding the return on the time and money you're investing. Close quote. That keeps the point while acknowledging there isn't a single path that fits everyone. The observation about AI is also a good one. Open quote, remember when people used to tell displaced workers, just learn to code? AI has changed that conversation. Coding is still valuable, but today it's often about knowing how to work with AI, review its output, and solve problems, not just writing every line from scratch. Close quote. When you pivot into talking about buying and reselling older Macs, I'd signal the topic change. Open quote. Speaking of hustles, here's another one I've been watching. Close quote. Then explain, open quote, people buy older Macs at a low price, clean them up and resell them. Just make sure you know what you're buying. A 2019 Intel iMac may still be useful for someone, but buyers should understand its software support status and limitations before paying premium prices. Close quote. That keeps the discussion focused on the resale market rather than implying that every sale is deceptive. An older computer can still be a good value if it's priced appropriately and the buyer knows what they're getting. Overall, one thing that's coming through in your Breakfast Talk format is a recurring theme. Open quote. Everybody has a hustle. Close quote. Whether it's rideshare, repairing computers, machining, coding, creating YouTube videos, or flipping used hardware, you're connecting different topics back to the same underlying idea. People find different ways to earn a living and adapt as the world changes. That's a consistent thread that ties the conversations together, even when the individual topics are very different.
But this is also the fact that ChatGPT doesn't see what I'm doing. Of course, I gotta go and fix my in-house AI because there's some issues that are happening there. You know. And always gotta love the changing face of Pussifer. It's always entertaining. Let's see, what's the $99 iPhone? It's probably SE2
Now, this
or
was such a crazy deal when I got
3.
off work. I dropped absolutely everything and ran around Salt Lake City, Utah like a madman, trying to see if I could get my hands on one of these iPhone 13s for just $99. The good news is I was able to get my hands on one of these iPhone 13s. The bad news is that process was not exactly easy. So in today's video, I'm going to walk you guys through that process. I'm going to share.
Of course, this is John Zoid's channel. He's talking about, is Walmart $99 iPhone even worth it? And it's an iPhone 13. And this was done 1 month ago.
Share some of the pros, some of the cons, and hopefully by the end of this video, I will have helped you make the decision if you should go to Walmart and get the $99 iPhone 13, or maybe you should take that $99 somewhere else, like taking your significant other on a hot date. I guess this is a good time to make a disclaimer that Walmart is not sponsoring me, and for those of you who are on the frugal end, like me, maybe I can help somebody out. Anywho, let's get started and run through this.
Almost 1 million subscribers.
The first step in all of this is not to go straight to Walmart like I am in this video, because I wasted 2 hours going to 4 different Walmarts this evening and never got an iPhone 13. The first step is to download the Walmart application. Once you download the Walmart application, you're going to need to create an account because you're going to need to add an address, and you're essentially going to check the inventory for your local area to see which Walmarts have the iPhone 13 in stock. And as you can see, these are in stock in this specific store. The promotion running is if you activate an iPhone 13 in store on Cricket, they'll sell you the phone for just $99. Once you've confirmed a Walmart near you is carrying the iPhone 13s in stock, it doesn't hurt to call in ahead and confirm that they really do have it in stock. Then you could go into the store and buy your iPhone 13. Now there is a con, depending on how you looked at it, and you just saw, as well as everyone else did, that you need to activate the phone on Cricket, which is AT&T. The good thing is it's not a contract, it's just month to month, and you are getting a brand new iPhone 13. One of the massive benefits of going to Walmart and buying a phone from them is because these are no contract plans. For example, with this iPhone 13, they legitimately sell it for only $99, and they don't lock you into a 3-year contract, whereas when you go to T-Mobile or Verizon or AT&T, they lock you into a 3-year minimum plan. Most of you guys are probably financing and paying for a carrier fee every month that you have your phone. You get that number, multiply it by 36, it's not cheap. Plus, if you want to switch carriers, you have to pay off the entire phone, plus you have to pay the entire balance for the carrier plan month to month, often for that remainder of the contract. So if you pay $100 a month for your service, which you shouldn't, that's $1,200 you'd have to pay to the carrier if you canceled out of that plan. That's just for 1 year. Do that times 3, it ain't cheap. So once you find a Walmart that's actually in stock of the iPhone 13s, you're going to want to ask for a premium sales associate. These guys are the guys that sell the cell phones, by the way. I know you guys like the shirt because this is totally rad. Anyways, you're going to ask for a premium sales associate. These are the only guys in Walmart that can sell these plans. You should also call ahead and confirm that one of these guys are in the store. To make it easy for you guys, if you're based in Utah and watching this, go to the Walmart on Hope and ask for Hector. This is Hector here. He was awesome. Him and his manager Chris helped me out, made it super easy once I made sure their store had it in stock. Now the last thing is when you go to checkout, in order to get the phone for $99, you're going to need to activate in store on one of these plans. I went with the cheapest plan, being $30 a month, and then if you pay in advance for the full 12 months, you get it down for $25 a month, but I preferred month to month, so I selected the $30 a month. So that was $99 plus $30 in tax. That's a pretty cheap iPhone 13 if you ask me. And just like that, I got an iPhone 13 for under $150 including taxes. Now previously with Total Wireless with these Walmart phones, they would unlock after 60 days of active service. But these AT&T phones, they've always stayed locked for a full year. And in July of this year, the FCC and the Trump administration, they lifted the mandate for Total Wireless phones to be unlocked after 60 days of active service. And now even the Total Wireless phones, those stay locked for a year as well, unfortunately. Now I do want to show you guys that this is just a regular iPhone 13 in the box. It's not refurbished, it hasn't been opened, batteries or other parts, they have not been swapped. Now there's two things I want to mention. First, you can see it's an iPhone 13, nothing crazy here. We're going to power it on and look at all the software and the good stuff. And I'll also talk about if this phone is even worth it in 2026. And the other thing is, I know this is not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Not everyone wants to get an iPhone 13 right now, I get it. But this is for people who need a very affordable option and still, in my opinion, get a very good iPhone. Oh yeah, there's also this. This is the SIM kit that comes with the phone. All you need to do is read the instructions on this. But if it's like other track phones that I've had previously, you just take the SIM card out right here and you pop it into the phone and you're good to go. Smile, you're on Cricket. I think that's all you do. There might be an extra step, but one thing is 100%. When you check out at the register, that is the activation because you pay for 1 month of service right when you're at the register. Let's see. If you're keeping your phone, yeah, so it walks through steps if you're keeping your phone number, and then it walks you through steps if you are starting a new line. So very straightforward. It comes stuck on the back of the phone, so you don't need to worry about that. I think it depends on who you are, but the iPhone 13 is still impressive. It's got an OLED Super Retina XDR display, 12 megapixel back camera, 5G, it's MagSafe, and it's got really good battery life, and it has the A15 Bionic chip. Now, sure, it still uses a USB Lightning cable, but who doesn't have one of those laying around? And it comes with one. But one of my favorite parts of the phone is the camera. Even though it's only 12 megapixels, it takes some really good photos, and it's got the ultra wide. Now, what better place to test my camera than when I'm on a walk, but I decided to take a few snapshots of this plant here. Don't know what type, but for the phone only being $99, these photos look pretty dang good. For $99, I don't know how you could complain, and you still get features like video stabilization. This little guy can record in 4K up to 60 frames per second, and it's got that ultra wide, which I love shooting in ultra wide. By the way, how do you guys like my haircut? Oh wow, look at it blowing the wind. For $99, the camera alone is really impressive, and I don't know if you can beat that for 99 bucks, and it will have support for at least the next 4 years. On the contrary, it's got a 60 Hz refresh rate, which isn't amazing. Then again, if you're looking for a budget phone, I don't know if it really matters. Another thing is it doesn't have the dynamic island, because with the iPhone 13, those hadn't been released yet. It's also got the Lightning charge port, which I've already mentioned previously. You probably have a bunch of those laying around. If not, it comes with one. It's also got a physical SIM tray, and in my book, that is always a
Well,
bonus.
folks, I'm
For
gonna
you
cut
nerds
it
out there, I ran a test to run some
so I can get
benchmarks
on to my
the phone,
day.
and I've done this
I
with
hope
the
you all
iPhone
have a
13
great
before,
day,
but I went ahead
and
and did
this
it
is
again. On the
the
single core side, it scored 1,968.
first time
On
of
the
streaming on
multi-core side, it
YouTube
scored
and on Rumble at the same time,
4,705.
so
On the GPU
we'll see how
side,
that
it scored
looks. You have yourself a fun,
18,538,
safe,
which
and productive
altogether,
day,
this is good
because if it
performance
ain't
for an
fun, it
iPhone,
ain't
and
safe,
should
it
do
ain't going to be
essentially
productive.
everything you need to daily drive an iPhone. In the end, if you're tight on cash and all you have is under $200 to get a phone, going to Walmart and taking advantage of this deal is not a bad option. Whether you're in need or you've got friends or family who might benefit from this deal, feel free to share this video with them and let them know that Johnzoid is thinking of you. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.
A retired mayor with too much free time decided my family's horse ranch was an eyesore on his shiny new neighborhood. He sent the letters, the fines, the inspectors, the whole circus. What he didn't know was that the company pulling his strings was about to change hands. And the man signing the paperwork was the same horse guy he kept trying to run out of town.